Hi, everybody. My name's Joe Sprague, and I was the best man at Craig's wedding. And I've known Bert for quite a long time, back from our days at Ursinus when we played baseball together. And now, actually, Bert had the opportunity to watch Craig and I coach my son Joseph and his son Teddy the past few years at Sacred Heart. So, have some very fond memories of Mr. Jones. But I just want to share two quick stories that really stick out for me with him. And the first story I'm going to tell, I don't even know if I told Craig this story yet, but over the past few years, my dad and I started hunting deer hunting on Craig and Gina's property. They were very nice to let us use their land and kind of a way for my dad and I to get back out there and do something we did when I was a kid. So one day I was out there and I was checking our camera and came back from the camera and I was getting in my truck and I would always hear the gator. If my truck was out there, Mr. Jones would somehow make his way over to me on the gator and you hear it coming and I would like, all right, let me stop, put my stuff away. And carve out some time to have a conversation with Mr. Jones. And you know, those are times where you just sit and you would just enjoy the company, right? He was just an awesome person to talk to. So this one specific time, I told him about this deer that was on our camera. And it was a big deer. And I was describing this deer to Mr. Jones. And every time I described the deer to Mr. Jones, I would say, well, it's got a rack that's like this. And then, you know, I would say it again, and the rack is like this. And Mr. Jones is looking at me. And he's like, and each time I said it's getting bigger, I'm telling the story, it's like the fish that got away story. And Mr. Jones is just looking at me and he's like, oh, it's this big. Oh, and it's this big. And it's this big. And it's this wide. And he was messing with me. And I'm like sitting there and he was having fun with me. And then here I am taking this whole story so serious. And he's just looking at me and I'm like, he got me. 4 times I must have said how big this deer was. And 4 times he just laughed at me. So it was something I'll never forget when I was talking to him in the field that day. And the last story I just want to share real fast kind of sums up Mr. Jones for me. My wife and I took down 2 big trees in our front yard over the last summer, and I needed dirt to fill in the holes. And you know, when I was hunting one day, Mr. Jones had said, hey, you know, you can just take the dirt from my property. So one day I pulled my truck up, and Craig and I loaded up the back of my truck with the filled dirt from the farm down there. And I got a lesson on how good this dirt was. I don't know if he used the word. I don't know if he used the word acidic or it had enough lime. I don't know what he was trying to tell me all about it. And so Craig and I loaded it up, and then so when I was pulling out, he stopped me and he pulled me into a shop and he gave me 4 bags or 3 bags. I forget how many it was, but it had that. I guess you guys have said it already today. The twine, the Bailey wine twine, or whatever it's called. So he gave me 4 bags. One had seed in it. One had fertilizer in it, and one had lime in it. And he told me exactly what to do. He said, go home, put the dirt down, then throw this down, then throw that down, then throw this down, and then throw more dirt. He gave me specific to the T directions. And then he told me exactly how many times to water today and how much water to use. And lo and behold, I started doing exactly what he said. I was like destined to figure this thing out. So I did it, and it started to work. It started to grow. And one day, Craig pulls up out in front of my house, and here's Mr. Jones in the passenger seat. He came all over my house to check and see on how I was doing. You know, and I think it was just more like just because he cared. You know what I mean? Not just who he was as a person. And you know, that humor that he had in the first story that he showed me, that's a big thing that I'll remember. And then also too is just genuine care for me. And it wasn't about the grass eater. It wasn't about the deer. It was about him just caring about people. So that's how I'm always going to remember him. And you know, it's just something you'll never forget is those little interactions. And I had a ton of interactions with him, but those 2 really summed up who he was. And he's an amazing person. And thankfully, through my relationship with Craig, I was able to get to know such a special person. So thank you.
My foot's asleep, but I'm good. You're good. Take your time. This has been a real privilege to be here today and get to know the family that Bert was so justifiably proud of. Hearing you individually speak about him as a father or grandfather or uncle or cousin is an inspiration. It was fun to be at the 50th anniversary party and celebration, but this was even more special. Bert was my good friend from the time we met at Rutgers back in 1964 or so. I didn't play, or I wasn't on any swimming team. I have no stories to tell about that. I did play water polo, and there's anyway, and I know Bert did too. I went to Pemberton High School and met a lady who became my wife, Mary Ann, and also in the process of meeting her, I spent a lot of time with Connie and Bonnie and Shirley. I don't know if Shirley's still here, but we had a good time at Pemberton, and meeting Bert at Rutgers gave us a chance to get to know each other. And one day in the summer of '64, we went to a swimming party at Mirror Lake in Browns Mills, and I suggested to Bert that he might come too, because somebody that I knew would be there. A couple of people I knew would be there, since it was a Pemberton party. But Connie came, and Bert and Connie met. We sat around a campfire. Connie reminded me today that Bert offered her a ride home. And she said, "No, I came with my cousin. I'm going home with my cousin. I don't know who you are." So yesterday, Christy gave me credit for introducing her parents. It was a pleasure. So I'll take credit as the producer of the event today, and that all of you could enjoy the Bert and Connie show. I know it's been a long afternoon and a somewhat cold day. I don't know why you didn't plan it for a warmer day this week. But just one thing that occurs to me every March, basketball becomes important. And basketball was important to Bert. I didn't hear the word basketball today, but we roomed together at Rutgers for 3.5 years, 2.5 years. And Bert always played basketball with a couple of good friends. And he was in class with a guy named Bobby Lloyd, who became a Rutgers basketball legend. We didn't have March Madness then, we had the NIT. Rutgers was in the NIT, and I think they might be in the NCAA this year. But Bob Lloyd was a friend from accounting class, and Bert loved to play basketball with him, sometimes see him at the gym, and hung out at the gym with another guy named Jim Bilbana, who went on to coach in state in North Carolina? Yes, I'm just joking. Anyway, Jim Bilbana was a friend, and I every year in March I think about Bert's passion for basketball, and I think probably this March he's having a good time playing basketball somewhere, because he really enjoyed basketball. And I didn't enjoy the smelly clothes that piled up on his side of the room. And we used to joke about that. And the only other story, and Connie mentioned it today, and I lived with Bert first, then she lived with Bert, but he never got out of, we couldn't break him of the habit of having 2 alarms. 1 o'clock radio. As soon as the clock radio was invented, he had one. And the radio would come on and play for 15 to 20 minutes. Just enough to wake you up if you were in the room. But then there was a separate ringing alarm, Big Ben, over on a bureau that you had to get out of bed to go turn on. And every morning, Bert's clock radio comes on, and I'm an engineer, I had my day planned carefully, so I knew how early I had to get up to get to class. But I had to wake up a good 20 minutes early every day. So I guess that made those days good days. And I really enjoyed my relationship with Bert and the chance to watch his family and your family, Connie, develop. You've done very, very well. Thank you.
Yep. That's actually how a lot of my conversations started with my dad, especially if I walked over to the shed where he was. It was like he gave me like a point in time to actually get out what I wanted to say, or it was for him to actually think about all the things that he had been thinking about, what he was going to hit me with first. But the beauty of that was, I just loved going over and talking to him. The beauty of it is you get wrapped up in life and all the things that you do and stress and so forth, and I could go over and talk to him, and he was kind of unbothered, and that sort of made me unbothered, so it was good. But over the last couple of days, I've been thinking about my dad, and he was spent before his incident, he spent the day at my house. He was breaking down the Christmas train layout, By the way, it was February 23rd. But it was the Christmas train. That's kind of par for the course with Dad. And I go back to kind of like 3 interactions that I had with him that day. It kind of sums him up. So I just wanted to share those with you. So the first one is, it was around lunchtime, and Teddy came home from school. And if you see Teddy today, his hair's, he's grown it out, and Gina made him put some gel in it today. But normally it's fairly messy, and that's the move. So Pop was sitting at the counter in my kitchen, and Teddy was standing off to the side, and I said, Teddy, I was like, you and Pop got something in common today. Do you know what it is? And my dad knew that I was going to hit him with a zinger, and so he started smiling a little bit, and Teddy, sort of chuckled. I said, all right, Teddy, do you figure out? Do you know what you and Pop have in common today? He said, no. I said, well, neither one of you used a comb. And now look, that's not the greatest joke in the world, but I thought it was funny. So Teddy goes and sits down, and I thought that was the end of it. And Teddy goes and he sits down next to Pop, and I said, Teddy, tell Pop, I don't even know what the story was, but I said, tell Pop, something's going on. Well, Teddy must have gotten the joke when he looked at Pop and saw his head. Because Teddy was hysterically laughing. And he couldn't tell the story. So time and time again, he would start to tell a story, look at Pop, hysterically laugh. And when you get Dad laughing, it's, one, hysterically laughing is like pure joy anyway, but when you got Dad laughing, it was even better. And when I think about it in the context of, what's occurred, just how awesome that was. But, really it's about, his self-confidence. Like, he was fine. It didn't bother him, right? Like, I could give him jokes all the time. He wouldn't be upset by it, and he'd give it back to me as well. So I started thinking about other examples of his, his quiet kind of self-confidence. We've talked about the Sire Power hats. For those that don't know, Sire Power is a bull semen company, and he wore that out to dinner confidently. So, with that hat too, and my cousins from North Carolina will remember this, and probably Tom, when we go to an amusement park, he'd have the hat on, and the ride operator would say, sir, you need to take the hat off. And he'd say, no, it'll be fine. And sure enough, he would ride the whole damn ride with the hat on. I guess he didn't really value the Sire Power hat, but...
He had lots of them.
Yeah, he had a ton of them. But, as I got older, I realized, when we were on a legit ride, if the hat came off, so... He did make an adjustment. Other examples, we talked about him running, coming through the house half naked, and sitting down at the table to eat or whatever and meeting our friends. I think the other part that we didn't touch on is he would have a full-on conversation as if all his clothes were on.
Right.
So, that's the other part of this. It's one thing you could have a conversation with someone, but he acted as if all his clothes were on. So, anyway. And we talked about the road trips, and this goes back, my kids, they're born in the 2000s, so they probably think we're ancient being in the 1900s born. But anyway, we would take these road trips, and we would go 9 or 10 hours, and we didn't have phones or electronics. It was the radio and whatever games, and Dad made up this story about this moose, and Papoose Moose, and that was the name of this thing, this magical moose. And the thing was the coolest thing ever. But as we got older, we started to question some of the moose's powers because the story didn't really line up. He'd be like, Dad, like the moose went from New Jersey to California in the same day, and he didn't take a plane. No. He had a tail that could fly. All right. And then he would say, like, Dad, like the moose didn't eat in any of these stories. I'm like, when's the moose eat? Oh, well, he only needs to eat on the first Tuesday of the month. And like the stories and his rebuttals, he never caved, right? And he always made us laugh. So just that self-confidence and joy for life. Sorry.
Did you get a secretary up there?
Yeah, seriously.
Come hold your
So the second one, he was downstairs breaking down the trains, and he was with my cousin Scott. Gina wasn't home, and so I needed to go down. I needed to run out, so I ran downstairs, and I was going to ask him, if he was going to be home, because I had to leave Coop and Griff home. And so I went downstairs, and he was doing his normal dad thing, going from topic to topic to topic. And, you know, he hit me right out of the gate. You know, he asked me, he's like, you know, you got that power outlet in the back of your truck. How long can you run that with the engine's not on? Now, I got this truck a week ago. It was not part of the buying process for me, that evaluation. So, but he knew that. And he says, oh, you don't know anything about your truck. You didn't read the manual. Well, that's what Dad did. He would read the manual, and he'd give me all that information. And had he been around a couple more days, he would have given me an answer to that. Anyway, I needed to leave, and so he was kind of sitting away from me. And yeah, I went over to him, and I put my hands on his big barrel shoulders that he had. And I said, hey, you know, you gonna be home? I gotta go. I can't talk to you about this truck anymore. And he says, oh, yeah, I'll be there, hands flailing. And I mean, he would be there because he hadn't put a train away in like 20 minutes. But, you know, that's the thing I'm probably gonna miss, you know, most, is that he's there. You know, any type of problem or, you know, anything I needed, he would just, like other people, my sisters have said, and, you know, he just went over, no questions asked. And then the other part of that story is, for me anyway, is after we fix the problem, he'd probably go out and buy the tool that we needed to fix the issue that I used of his. Right? I haven't done an actual audit of my tools, but I would probably say 80% of the time, 80% of the tools he bought. He just always looked out for others. You know, we were building our house, and we go through the architect process, the builder, and you know, he's like, hey, you gonna get lightning rods? I mean, I hadn't even thought about lightning rods. But I think about it every time I have a thunderstorm, sitting in the middle of the field. You know, I think about, you know, the weather forecast that he'd give me 3 or 4 weeks away. Or, you know, just the care that he'd take on the lawn or the yard without even talking to me. I mean, countless times I'd look out the window and he'd be out there putting fertilizer down or dirt, or, you know, he'd just come up and tell me later, hey, I sprayed your bushes, you had insects that were eating your bushes, your trees. And he did it, he just was always there, right? And he saw things that I didn't see. So the last memory I have of him, you know, from that day anyway, was, you know, I got back and I was working, I was in my office, and he came upstairs to go to the bathroom, and my office faces out, so he walked by me and he gave me like a little smile. He was always really considerate when I was working. And he walked back after using the bathroom, and he didn't look back or anything, but he said to Gina, he said, Gina, I love that picture of you and the boys. We had just taken family photos, we actually over there. And he's like, I just love that picture. I can't believe how big the boys are getting. And, you know, then, you know, he put his shoes on, and then his customary, all right, I'll see you later. But, you know, the thing I think he just appreciated, and he had excitement for everything. Could be something he ate, could be a play that he went to, flowers, zinnias, could be a smell from my smoker, Grater's ice cream, seeing his grandkids. He just enjoyed it all. And the piece that I think, you know, I miss sometimes, and maybe we all do, is like, he took the time to tell you. I think about how he always had snacks on the Gator. There's actually, I think, some in there now. Maybe Griff or the guys got to it, but he would always give them snacks or a drink or root beer or whatever, and he'd say, savor it, you gotta savor it. But I think that's what he did every day. He just savored life, he enjoyed it. You know, I don't really remember seeing him mad outside of a handful of times in my entire life. He just had a way to keep calm. And you know, I've spent a lot of, well, we broke a lot of child labor laws in this spot that we're standing, but you know, we would go out to bale hay, and something, you know, you go out there and it'd be 100 degrees, you're gonna be out there for 4 hours, you're in jeans and long pants, it's like, you know, fairly exhausting day, and something would break before we go out, and I'd be F-bombing all over the place, and my dad would just take a breath and then go start to fix it. He just had a way to stay calm. You know, and as a kid, I would wait at the driveway for him to come up from work. And now, you know, he talked about his work ethic. He would have, you know, that every day was like a 10 to 12 hour day, and you know, he had a whopping day and a half off every 3 weeks. So, you know, anyway, I would wait up at the driveway, throwing a ball up and down, waiting for him to come up because I wanted to have a catch with him. And whether or not, depended on whether mom had dinner ready or not, we'd either have the catch before or after. We were never going to upset mom. And, but I didn't make it very, very easy for him. This may come as a surprise to some of you, but I had a touch of an attitude as a kid. I've outgrown that now. But, if I bobbled a ball or didn't catch it a couple times, I would, intentionally launch the ball over his head out of anger. Not at my dad, at just anger, I'm a maniac. But, and he would flip that Ernie Banks glove up as quick as possible. And, sometimes he'd catch it, sometimes he'd hit it with it, sometimes he didn't. But if he didn't, and he knew that I threw it over his head on purpose, he never yelled at me. He would just take a walk over and look at the garden, or he'd go and look at the trees, or he'd go look at the cows. And it was torturous for me, because I waited at the driveway for like 20 minutes for him. I wanted to have that catch. But he knew, he didn't want to yell at me, and eventually I stopped throwing the damn ball over his head, because I wanted to have a catch with him. So, I think in itself, it just is like his appreciation for life, that he wasn't going to spend it mad. So I guess just in conclusion, living across the street from him, I got a lot of memories, and where I grew up, I got a lot of memories that kind of hurt right now. But the good news is I got a lot to choose from for smiles later, so I'm excited about that. And most of the Joneses aren't that tall. But I was really excited when I grew taller than my dad, but I've always looked up to him. His work ethic, the guy that he is, and I guess the last couple of days, I have a little bit of peace in that I can still look up to him. I just gotta tilt my neck a little bit more. So I want to try and shift the attitude to every day is a good day, and it's just not going to be as good without him. But we got a lot of memories, and he's a great guy. So just on behalf of our family, just really appreciative of everybody coming out today. Sorry it's a little colder than we thought. I was hoping Dad would warm it up a little bit, but probably too busy talking to somebody. So, as my dad would say, all right, I'll see you.
I want to see that.
Is that yours?
What's that?
Is that yours? You get a new one?
No, this I think is Coach Joe's. I think it's his. And Mom hasn't set, so everybody that spoke should be interested to watch it soon and years from now.
I'm very excited. He kind of says it sheepishly, but I'm so excited. Taking this calmly.
That's okay.
Yeah. We actually I'm thinking limb palm trees and thunder.
very first speaker?
Maybe.
Yeah, I just
We're right in front.
I just